Thank you for listening to the Business and Beyond podcast.
We appreciate all of our listeners. If this is your first time listening to the Business and Beyond podcast, we hope you enjoy this episode. Episode 60 of the Business and Beyond podcast is brought to you by Raze Energy. Look in the description box below for the link and enter our exclusive coupon code Business Beyond for your discount on Raze Energy drinks. I'm Ashton here with Tony in the studio, bringing y'all the latest and greatest information, news, in business and technology. And this episode's no different. Talking about the new mandate coming up in the European Union.
But before that, let's get a weather update.
Weather update.
Is it 104 out today?
Let's see. It's only... my minute hand's ahead of the... I think it's 99 degrees right now.
So
at
we're coming down.
7:30 in the evening in Texas.
So there's your weather update.
Why did like half of our podcast start with talking about the weather?
I don't know.
Maybe we should... That's Texas.
It's just a weather update.
We've talked about Snowmageddon.
Yeah.
We've talked about constant rain. We've talked about a heat wave.
I'm having to hold myself back from complaining about the heat because when Snowmageddon was going, I kept saying I'll take the 100-degree days every day to not be freezing.
Yeah.
And now I'm sweating. I'm thinking, man, what's better?
Well, I'll tell you.
I think I'll still take the heat.
It's more bearable
in
here. It gets probably in the low 80s in here. Slightly uncomfortable. But no, in Snowmageddon, I had my heater on in here. There was no chance. I couldn't keep it above 40. But yeah, I guess European Union. It's a mandate for all of Europe. So
yeah.
I don't know how the governing works necessarily there, but European Union mandating that. Well, you have the article. You go ahead and get this.
Well, they're mandating all devices, which would cover phones, tablets, headphones, pretty much any mobile electronic that you would charge. By the fall of 2024, has to have a USB-C charging port.
As opposed to Apple and Samsung having their different chargers and laptops.
I mean, I think most companies are rolling that way and have been for quite some time to a USB-C charging port, aside from Apple on their phones and maybe the AirPods only.
I just bought this Apple Watch and it came with a charger, which is weird. They don't come with the blocks anymore. Last iPhone I bought didn't come with the block either. But it was a USB-C
and I think
charger
all of the,
as well.
All of the cables that come in them now do have USB-C on one end.
Yeah.
But the actual end that plugs into your device, and that's what's being mandated, is what plugs into your device has to be a USB-C, where Apple's Lightning port would be essentially illegal to sell in Europe. So as a business owner, obviously, Apple, they're going to have to make some changes or not sell
or
iPhones
at least
in Europe.
Specific one. They may make specific iPhones to sell.
I just don't think they will. I think there's too much that goes into development and
they're
production.
$1 trillion company.
I just don't think they would do that. They don't do it for anything else. I don't think that would be.
Well, they have a lot of time before that. They're going to come out with 8 new iPhones before then. So
and you don't know that they're not working in the USB-C anyways. My concern here is the government overstepping their boundaries by forcing private businesses to produce universal charging products, and we'll get into that universal part later, that is it truly universal? But if you have a proprietary product or service, is it okay for the government to step in and tell you that you're not allowed to do that everybody needs to be apples to apples?
It can be. I know it's a slippery slope. But this is one of the few things the government's doing that, as a consumer or as a user, it's helping you. A lot of times they say this is for the good of the people, but and maybe there's ulterior motives here. I'm sure there's money being passed around, handshakes being done where people who are making USB-C chargers. But either way, companies have been seeing this coming because they've slowly been transitioning to that already. But I think this is something universally that's going to help, because we were doing research on it. Phones, tablets, chargers, computers, laptop computers, everything's going to eventually, any electronic that plugs into a charger, a charging port, has a charging port, will have to be USB-C.
Or I guess it would also fall under like your watch does, because your watch doesn't actually charge wired; it's a wireless charger.
Which is fine on its own, because you see the I don't know, it's a problem. It's kind of a nuisance everyone's been dealing with. Getting into your friend's car, hey, do you have a charger? You have an iPhone charger, a Samsung charger, and a top two Samsung and iPhone, or I give it Android. Complete different. You don't even have to. Nothing's like Apple. Samsung kind of mixed with other products. It's not like just exclusive, but Apple's is exclusively for Apple. So maybe most of your stuff's Apple. You have an iPad, you have an iPhone, you have an iWatch, but some people might have an iPad and a Samsung, and the chargers don't. It's not a universal charge.
Well, and I think also what has come with this, we're talking about the wireless charging in here as well. So, and you just got the Apple Watch, so you'll find that the wireless charging on the Apple Watch is not the same as the wireless charging for the phone or the AirPods.
Yeah.
It's completely, they don't work on the same wireless charging. So that's another thing that this story also mentioned, is they're looking to universally set standards for wireless charging.
So AirPods would be under that, because they have the AirPod case. That's how you charge them. And you plug it in. That is the same as my iPhone, because I use the same charger.
Right. But they also will charge wirelessly on a charging pad. That's how I charge mine. See, it's not a problem for me, because I don't hardly use the Lightning port anyways.
Yeah.
My AirPods and my phone I charge on a wireless dock. So that doesn't become a problem, and I really don't see that it being that big of an issue, because I think a lot of people do charge that way.
And I don't think, because they're giving so much time in advance, that very few people in 2024 are going to be, not going to say very few people, I think the majority of people aren't going to be using a phone that was made in 2021, 2022.
Yeah.
In 21 and 22. So I don't think the manufacturing, they're going to have to manufacture the phone anyways. It's going to be different. Apple's got to switch their cameras around to make sure just by looking at it, it's different. So you envy it and want it. I think Apple would have a problem with this, not because they can't do it, they'll just manufacture that. But when they got rid of the headphone jack and put it in the bottom, like, what does that do? I'm sure they gave you a good technological reason why they did that. They did that so you buy the adapter. You'd spend more money in Apple products. You buy the adapter so you could charge it and put your headphones in at the same time. And then they did it so you would buy AirPods, so you didn't have to buy the adapter and plug everything. You just have the AirPods. They have a problem with this, because once they have that USB-C port, anything you can plug that, any adapter work. You don't have to buy Apple brand. It's going to take the exclusiveness away from the accessories you buy.
Do we have a problem with that? Is that I find issue with that.
With the government or Apple?
The government can step in and tell me what I can do as a business owner. For the government to come in and say, your techniques, the way you produce for print products or anything that I do, you're not allowed to do that anymore. And even if it's a proprietary way that I've come up with doing it, that they would tell me, no, you're not allowed to do that. You need to do it like everybody else does it. Essentially, that's what this boils down to. Is the government telling?
Europe. It is Europe, but
you're right.
Down the road,
Europe's typically a little bit ahead of the curve than we are.
Yeah,
and we start seeing things like that. I mean, they're way over the top. But then we do see a lot of that legislation tend to trickle down,
and because most of the legislation ends up being good for the end consumer.
And I get that part, but you don't have to buy an iPhone if you don't want to have this charging issue. You have tons of options for a phone. That's where my concern is if the charging cord you're using is a problem, then go buy another brand. If that's what makes you happy,
Well, I think other companies tend to have issue too, because there's a reason Apple, the developers at Apple aren't idiots. You always complain, why is it so hard to use Apple products with any other product? They do it so you'll just buy Apple products. They'll make more money by the people who want Apple products buying it and losing the other customers who say, screw it, I'm not buying Apple just because of that. They're fine with that because they'll make up the money with all the other people. I mean, you have an iPad, an iPhone, an iWatch, AirPods, AirTags, or iTag. Are they AirTags? AirTags. I have an iWatch, an iPad, or an Apple Watch, an iPad.
I've even upgraded now to a MacBook.
That's something I think we talked about this. I don't know if we talked about it. Why is this not called an iWatch? It's an Apple Watch. iPad, iPhone.
I don't remember the exact explanation, but I did see a YouTube video about that mentioned like the explanation of why they didn't call it the iWatch.
Probably something stupid. There's an iWatch, like they did some bullshit market research.
Every time this conversation comes up, it makes me think of I think it was a Saturday Night Live skit, and I think it was before predecessing but the iPad coming out.
Yeah.
And it was like the iPad, but it was like a female pad, like hygienic pad, and they were making fun of Apple naming everything an I.
That brings it up, and I think we've had this conversation before, but we've had lots of drunken stupor conversations in this studio. I don't know if it was on air, so our loyal listeners, if we've had this, just bear with us. We have a lot of new listeners now. But, so I'm thinking, okay, there's some bullshit market research reason saying you can't, I watch, people think of this or whatever. If you watch Mad Men, you understand that. But the same thing with iPad. You've seen that joke, the meme where it says, I want an iPad. I bought him an iPad for Christmas, and it's a box with the eye patch. It says iPad on it.
Yeah.
So they call that an iPad. And no one ever thought, well, what if they think of an eye patch iPad? But iWatch, I don't know. If you know the answer, just go ahead and comment exactly why. You kind of know, but you don't remember exactly.
Yeah, I don't
why.
remember the exact details.
There's a reason, and I'm sure it's a magnificent story, very interesting reason why.
Yeah.
That we got sidetracked here on the other train.
But as reports are coming out, Apple's already internally been testing the USB-C in the phones. Obviously, it's much more than just throwing in a USB-C port into the phone. When you look at the dynamics of a phone of the size that this is, it's thin. You have to change the port. It changes internals, which might displace other processors and things within the phone batteries.
It's the same with making a new Madden video game or whatever. You're not restarting. You're taking what you have and improving it. So when they make a new iPhone, they take the prototype, the schematics, and say, okay, let's change the camera here, and then they have it made.
Yeah.
That's gross exaggeration.
I'm sure they're using
simplifying
that, and rightfully so. If they change the port to USB-C, I'm perfectly fine with it. I'm good with that, because then this could charge with another charger.
The thing is, it's a slippery slope, and I don't think a lot of people are taking it from that point of view like you, because who it affects is Apple. It affects big electronic companies. People who make phones and iPads, you don't see that really being a small business. I mean, the closest we can think of is Zapata.
Yeah.
And would this affect him whatsoever? He may need to stock more. He sells chargers, doesn't he sell cords? Not only repairs products. Maybe stock more, just update himself on information. And I'm sure he knows a lot about the ins and outs of these phones. And you take them apart, he could probably tell you that's an iPhone, that's an Android or whatever. So maybe there's something there. But if this was something affecting restaurants or companies that tended to mostly be small businesses, I think people would take that approach to it. See, I saw it and I thought, hey, this is kind of a good idea, just because the end user.
On the consumer.
Yeah, the consumer, the end user.
Well, and also it will cut down on what they allege is that this would cut down on waste, because when you're continuing to buy more devices, that you would already have chargers and you wouldn't have to go out and buy additional chargers. Yep. So if you have a charger in your car, your new device comes with one charger, but if you have, and we've all been here, right? If you were to switch brands, you have a charger in your car, in the office, in your bag. if you switch to another device, you would need all new chargers for all those devices. Where
And you may be somebody who say, well, I'm never changing from Apple or Android or whatever, but you get a new job and that's the work phone you're given. And that's specifically why, which now most of the jobs I have, they have iPhones, but the first time I refused a work phone was because I had a Samsung at the time. They were giving me an iPhone. I'd rather just use my personal phone because I don't want to carry the chargers around.
well, my company gave me the option for an Apple or other, so that worked out for me, mostly because I knew the usability of it and the charging capabilities of having the correct charger all the time. But they state this is for universal purposes. After the break, let's get back into that a little bit and see, is this really going to be an option to make it a universal charging?
Yeah. And do we think it might affect businesses in other ways, like we were just talking about handing out work phones?
Mm-hmm.
More from our bodies,
More from our minds.
so we went on a mission.
To study the top level of performance across every competitive playing field.
To find what fuels the highest level of athletes, businessmen, and gamers.
Through intense trials across every competitive landscape, we found that there were 5 undeniable principles that help your body operate at the highest level of peak performance all the time.
Focus. The ability to visualize and execute with precision. Focus is the single most important component when it comes to performance.
We combined multiple choline sources, including alpha GPC, choline bitartrate, along with L-tyrosine to help boost mental performance.
Recovery.
We need to take you from 5% to 100% as fast as possible. Bounce back with nourishing BCAAs.
For body and mind. Energy.
Fuel to get the job done. Answer the bell with confidence that you'll be able to attack energy and intensity.
We mix a blend of instant and sustained release caffeine to light a fire with
300 milligrams of GO.
stamina.
The willpower to see it to the end.
But true stamina is coming back day after month after year. We incorporated L-carnitine to deliver energy on a cellular level, with betaine anhydrous and taurine augmenting those effects.
Hydration. Sports science was built on hydration, and it's no secret why.
That's why we added a blend of electrolytes to help sustain performance. We tried all of the other energy drinks. They may help you stay awake, but not much else. We combined all 5 pillars of performance into one single form:
Focus.
Recovery.
energy,
Stamina.
and hydration. We call it refresh technology.
And it delivers more.
Back here on the Business and Beyond podcast,
Episode 60.
60, brought to you by Raze Energy.
We're about to start collecting retirement.
Yeah.
Episode 60.
So before the break, we've been talking about this episode about this USB-C revolt, I guess, that Europe's having, and I would say more of this is targeted towards Apple products than anything, because that Apple's been the one that's been stronghold against, at least with the iPhone, sticking with their proprietary Lightning.
We keep using Android as an example, but because I guess they're still number 2. Samsung and Android, they didn't invent and develop their own chargers. These were chargers that are, well, I mean, I guess Samsung did back in the day, but...
Well, they were using other USB-A's
yes,
and the micro, whatever USB.
Apple, those are exclusive Apple.
Yeah, well,
chargers.
even before the Lightning charger, they had the 30-pin connector,
Which
charger, the
which
big.
pissed me off the most, because that's one thing, like, you don't switch, when you upgrade your phone, you don't switch brands. That's one of the benefits, is you have your own charger. And I didn't know there's another charger, and I didn't know this when I bought it, which I don't think I was going to go away from Apple. Apple, they're genuinely evil. You can't get away from Apple once you've had Apple. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult, especially when you have all your different products. But they switched that. I had no clue. I didn't keep up with it. That was before we had this podcast, and we had to keep up with that information. Yeah. And I was pissed off. And now, if you switch to Apple, I guess, I don't know, I haven't had anything but Apple recently, but do all phones not include the block anymore? They just assume you have a block, which
I don't know.
Mostly USB. But as most of us know, if you don't use the correct brand. It doesn't charge
I
the
don't
same
think
way.
it's been the... Yeah, I think you just have to have the correct sizing. Recently, I haven't worried about it. I haven't used the block that it's come with in a long time anyways. I prefer to buy additional block, new blocks of my own, and I have some that have multiple ports with the USB-C and they're fast charging, and some that I can use for my phone, my tablet, and my laptop, my MacBook as well, because it's a larger. I assume that's okay for the phone to charge with that bigger charging block, but I guess time will tell on that.
I think it goes vice versa, just like computers, and we'll get to that, why computers are under this mandate and why that may,
Now there are.
Look,
we can go ahead and talk about that. There are some computers already. I have a work computer that it's a Windows. I don't even know what the brand of it is. Maybe an Asus or something. It does charge with USB-C. It has a normal block, but the plug on it is a USB-C plug. My MacBook charges with USB-C. I know several. I don't know what your ThinkPad is. Is it the round?
No,
plug?
It's a rectangle, which my computer was a ThinkBook, and I'm thinking, oh great, everything works the same, and it doesn't.
It's different.
I had to buy a different charger, even though it almost looks exactly the same. It's just slightly different.
So what I had to do too, in this
Lenovo, same brand.
Okay, yeah, I'm not contradicting what I was saying about, hey, you know what, you shouldn't force, because I think as a business you shouldn't force them. But I'm in the predicament with all of the, the memory blocks that we're using for transferring data with the podcast and stuff, that the hard drive,
Yeah.
The cables that come with it, the normal, especially for your computer, it's just the regular USB plug-in. So I've had to buy secondary cables so that I can plug that. I can unplug that one and plug the other one in to plug into my MacBook, because it's USB-C only. It doesn't have any other USB ports. So that has become a problem, because now I have devices that I have to carry two different plugs with, chargers with. The same with the microphone I have at my studio, is I had to buy an additional cable that had the USB-C end on it as well. So, and this is another one. This doesn't have the USB-C on it.
So, the mandate's talking about USB-C being plugged into the device.
Yes.
So the other end, even though a lot of chargers now already have USB-C,
this doesn't actually explain that.
It would probably be really convenient in the future for chargers to have both ends exactly the same, and you're not worrying about. I guess a lot. Because in the end, when you're talking about plugging into a block, it's either going to be USB-C or USB-C. I think maybe I'm not into it too much because I haven't bought a lot of new devices, but I would say vast majority is USB right now. Because I said, I bought my Apple Watch, and the block end goes into a USB-C, which is weird because I didn't have a USB-C. So I think in the end,
which is part of this mandate. So if they're switching everything, but you don't have any,
so I say I don't know if it's lucrative enough to say, oh yeah, they're paying them off, so you'll buy a lot more USB-C.
Similar issue I remember came up, and I don't remember what country this was in, was that this country was trying to force Apple to provide the blocks with the phones, because they couldn't assume that someone had a block to plug their iPhone into already.
They don't provide that. My last two phones I bought.
Yeah, no, and this is another country that I think had this issue, and they were doing something similar to what Europe's doing, is trying to mandate them to provide the charging block in the packaging.
So basically, I'm sure there's a reason why they did. Well, I think it would be cheaper, maybe not now because it's older technology to have a cord and block all attached, but it's cheaper for manufacturers. The reason they do this is a block separate. Now all they have to do is provide the cord, which is probably cheaper, and cheaper for you and I in the long run, because the cord's going to go bad quicker than a block would, and you could just keep your block, buy a new cord.
So that's something I deal with. Like I told you, I haven't used a block in a long time. Even when they were still coming with their own block, I was upgrading the block anyways from the Apple blocks. So I actually have a lot of those blocks just floating around that have never been used. I even have like one in one of the small, the small square ones that used to come with the iPhone, in like my GoPro set, just as a secondary backup if I need to plug in a quick. It gives me an option for a USB.
So one of the issues, which it may just be, it's going to be a user error type of deal. We were talking about with a GoPro's going to have to do this. An iPad.
Well,
an
the good thing, the GoPro is already USB-C. They've upgraded theirs, so.
But the problem with making everything universal is people plug whatever into whatever. And we were talking about, I don't know the effect a computer charger. I don't know that it'd be affected much. Plugging into phone. Maybe the phone shouldn't. Maybe you shouldn't do it because of the phone, but vice versa, because I've done it. Because iPad chargers are obviously slightly more powerful, and not having an iPad charger, I guess, I don't know if it's a cord or just the block. It's the block. Not having it accessible, you just say, screw it, I'm going to plug the iPad into the charger. And I've had chargers go out because you put a more powerful device on a less powerful charger or block.
Or
and it's the same way.
Won't charge.
Usually they do, but right now my iPad, now that it's getting older, you plug it into a phone charger, it'll work. It'll keep it charged if you keep it plugged up while you use it. But if I plug it up, it may take 2 days to get to 100%.
Yeah.
And then I just let it sit. Something about the charge, I may be just completely ignorant on this, but it seems like it's not a quality charge.
Good, yeah.
And it dies quicker. The battery loses the battery quicker. So, assuming right now I have a phone charger readily available to me, I have a laptop, I have my headphone charger, somebody's going to come in here once all this is done, not in here, but in their studio, office, whatever, and have one charger. And whether it's going to kill the charger because the computer shouldn't be used on it, or I don't know if that's good for your phone, bad for your phone. It charges your phone faster. It has no effect on a lesser device. But people are just going to use these interchangeably, which is kind of the point of doing it in the long run. But you're going to have to, I feel like you're going to go through a lot more chargers doing this because you're not going to probably use a phone charger for a phone, a computer charger for a computer.
I guess it would, in my everyday backpack carry setup, I have several chargers, some micro USBs, USB-C, the Lightning. I have a few different charge cables in there for different devices that I have between GoPros and the microphone and other things. I have secondary, redundancy of cabling if I'm on the go. It would be a nice thing to have everything and just carry one cable and one large block, and that be it, and that charges everything you own.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
And, it'd be convenient for smaller businesses like Zapata, or even when you go to airport terminals, you have the block of all the different chargers. But you just have a charger readily available. It's all the same. You don't have to worry about it.
Well, like you mentioned Zapata, they carry one product at that point.
Yeah.
And it's good for anyone.
You're just worrying about lengths of chargers. And I guess in the long run, the cords themselves wouldn't be any different. It would just be the block that you carry. So I guess you just carry different blocks, because the blocks are, I don't know how long it takes for a block to go bad. I don't think I use them long enough before I get a new block or charger. But
yeah, I think my kids lose them before they go bad.
Yeah, but like you said, instead of having all those different chargers, you just have a different block. Because I know,
or you just have one block that's the larger side that would cover your computer, and everything can charge off of that same one, assuming that's safe for all the smaller devices. Because I know, I did run into an issue like this with my daughter's Nintendo Switch. We were using another USB-C device. I think she lost her charger. We bought another one, but it was like an off-brand, but it was still just USB-C, and it wasn't charging her device properly. So we did have an issue because it wasn't the correct. And a lot of the companies do say this is you need to use Nintendo or Apple or whoever. You need to use the actual branded charger. So what issues do we run into when we're trying to make it universal?
My son used to have the phone. Now he has an iPhone, but I guess he had an Android before. But for whatever reason, it was the same as a Nintendo charger, and he would charge his Switch with the phone charger.
Yeah.
And his phone charger, it went, I don't know for a fact that it was doing that, but it was about a week later, and it wouldn't charge the phone at all. Like, it would plug in and it would show that it's charging, but it never increased. And so you had to tell him, telling at the time an 8-year-old, you have to use this charger for this, and then whatever. But now that you have an iPhone, I just gave my old iPhone. Everyone, all the parent Karens out there, you bought your. I got a new job and I had an extra iPhone, but now that you have the charger, you alleviate that.
Yeah.
So now let's dumb us all down to that level. Will we be able to do that and not use chargers properly?
Yeah.
Because we said.
And has this just become? Is Europe this has just become a popularity contest of USB-Cs the way that we're going? I mean, that's why they're making this decision that, hey, this is going to be universal because it's the most popular for the time.
And it's basically just an updated of USB.
Yeah.
It's a little more, I guess.
I guess it transfers data better, faster, charging's faster. It's compatible with all of that.
As fast as technology
is. At what point does technology change and now we have something better than USB-C in the future? You know what I mean?
You'd probably still have the same deal. I mean, how long have USB plugs been around? A very long time for as fast as technology is growing. And I can tell you, go buy a USB port or USB cord at the store, and it's probably slightly different from one a long time, although it works the same.
Yeah.
So you're just upgrading it, but you're still being able to plug it up and use it. But maybe if you have an older one, it's not transferring the data as, I don't know, one day you might have a really sophisticated charger, and if you want to buy a cord, USB-C cord, and maybe you can call it something different. But because we're already universal, we're just gonna, it'll still plug in and do the old things, but now it can do all this other great shit, transferring data more efficiently.
Yeah. I know I did have to end up buying some of the adapters, USB to USB-C. They're little plug dongle things that you plug in one end and the other end gives you, it just adapts it to the other type of
dongle.
That's a term.
I've never heard.
But
let's go ahead and real quick apologize if you're still listening to all the geeky tech type people for our use of terminology in this episode. We're doing our best. This isn't a tech podcast, but it is relevant to what we talk about.
It's very relevant to business.
We're using terms like dongle and whatever I just used. I was saying cord. I try to apologize in the middle of my point. I'm saying go buy a cord or a port at the store, and I understand our terminology is the best.
But the point we're getting at is this is something big that's changing. It has positive and negative effects on businesses, both. The positives are if everything switches, then you can be one of the front runners providing these type of products that are only USB-C type products. Because I would venture to guess that Europe, and it hasn't officially passed, but it's really a technicality, the final vote to write this into law that'll happen later this year, which will begin in the fall of 2024. I would venture to guess it's not going to be long before that comes here to the States and starts to become a thing. And
I know people out there, even though y'all agree this is a good thing, you don't like the government and, being a libertarian or something. I'm not making fun of libertarians, by the way. But no, it's probably not going to come in the form of legislative law. But
you hope that it doesn't.
It won't, but it'll come up in a certain way that maybe it does, but it probably won't. But it'll come in a certain way that they stop making certain products or start doing stuff differently, where you don't even realize they're forcing you to do something.
Yeah.
That's usually the way it comes in America. Europe's no different. They just pass laws differently, and we just use our capitalist tendencies to change.
And I'm okay with
things.
it just naturally evolving.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen it come this way, and I just kind of assume that it's not going to be too long before the next iPhone will have USB-C charging, and I guess I need to hold off until that happens here in the next year or so, hopefully. Yeah. That I don't want to go buy a phone and then it's outdated because they've upgraded to USB-C, so I'll hold out for a new phone until...
Well, that's the thing with wireless charging. It's not going to matter because, like
true.
I said, my watch had it and it came with the USB-C cord. And my wife just happened, because she had an Apple Watch, I won't call it an iWatch, an Apple Watch charger she had lost, bought a new one, but found it. That was USB. So I just used that. So the way it'll come down to that is because Europe's doing this and America doesn't want to do it, or they know we can't do something like this, or we're going to lose our Senate spot.
Yeah.
That we're just going to force the companies to do it. Apple or whoever is going to go ahead and change that they do it. So we're just going to have to buy them anyways.
Yeah.
Or they're going to come with the phones. It's really not as big as it is you think it is unless you just want to get into the point that the government shouldn't be doing this.
I think that, for me, that's where I come from.
It's a slippery slope.
Is that I just feel like the government shouldn't be overstepping boundaries this to force it.
Even if you agree...
It's evolving that way anyways.
Yeah.
They don't need to step in. There's so many things, especially in our country more so. I don't know a lot about Europe, but in our country, there's so many other issues that the government should be focusing on, that legislation should be working on, and not what charger are we using, you know?
And there are issues, there are very few issues that we, as society can just 100% agree on. This is a great thing. And even what we're talking about, there's people that know more in depth about it, and are saying, well, here's another issue. Why? But even 100%, if we all agree on it, there are those of us that say, yes, that's true, but the government shouldn't tell us what to do. Because it's a slippery slope, then we know with all the issues with what's going on in our country these days, that even if we agree on it, we're like, well, hold on. We agree that here's a solution, or this is the end game, this is where we want to be, but we all disagree on how it is we're going to get there.
Yeah.
And we get emotional with it, and we're not going to discuss that here on this show. But I understand, and we're going from a point, and it's hard to transfer it to government dealing with small business, because I don't think this negatively affects many small businesses. But you can't just say, well, Apple's $1 trillion company, so who cares?
Yeah.
Let the government do what they want to do, because I think in the long run, it helps out. But in the end, if you want to screw over Apple or do whatever and cost them a bunch of money, they don't care. They're not gonna. It may cost them up front, but in the long run, it's going to come down to iPhones becoming $1,500 instead of $1,100.
Yeah.
Or whatever. They're going to get their money regardless.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Speaking of money and government government overreach. Something we might talk about here in the future, if you're into golf, and even if you're not, it's pretty intriguing. Saudi Arabia and the Live Golf Tour, I think it's called. LIV. It looks weird when you look at it because it looks like Roman numerals.
Yeah, this might be a teaser for next week's show.
Yeah, Live Golf Tournament. Do y'all's research so y'all can argue with us intellectually about this, because I think this could get down to a political type discussion. But we're gonna have fun with it.
All right. Until next week,
We'll see you.
thank you again for supporting the Business and Beyond podcast.
Be sure to hit the subscribe button to be alerted every time we post a new episode.